dealing with conflict. Welcome to the Hopefulist with me, Wendy McClure. This is where we turn those nasty, negative thoughts into positive and work toward a happy, fulfilled life. Now, let's get started. How are you doing on that, by the way? Are you feeling happier? Are you feeling more fulfilled? I hope that you get a little something out of each episode that is put out, because that is my goal here. I really, really want to help you improve your happiness, to feel a life that is fulfilling for you. This is why I always use the term live life better, because you can. There are so many little things that we can do to start living our lives better. And that is some of the wisdom that I try to share with you every week. And I hope that's how you're perceiving it. If you ever want to reach out to tell me how you think I'm doing, or if you have an idea for a topic or a subject that you would like a little more exploring on, feel free to reach out to me at any time, and that could be through any of the social media channels or directly to my email at thehopefulist1@gmail.com. The quote of the day is spend some time hanging out with your heart. Get clear on your almighty why, and let your fears know they ain't the boss of you. I just read a quote recently. I don't remember who said it, and I don't remember it word for word, but most dreams are killed by fear of something than the actual something that happens. Completely not the way it was said at all. But I hope you get my gist. That people don't even start and stop very quickly on their dream because of the fears they let get inside. And a lot of times, those fears won't even come to fruition. We just talk ourselves out of it because of that fear. That is no way to live your life. Yes, failure sucks. Yes, I know. I've failed many times. I've been fired from jobs. I've been dumped in relationships. I have been passed over for I can't tell you how many jobs. It stinks. But guess what? I'm still alive. I'm still alive. And I'm living my best life. I am happy. I am fulfilled. I have a life satisfaction. Let's say 9 3/4. There's always a tiny bit of room for improvement. So 9 3/4. Something a little bit more could make me just a touch happier. Something we don't like, something that doesn't make us happy, having to deal with conflict. Yeah, that's something that we have to deal with whether we like it or not. There aren't many people that enjoy conflict. Now, I know some of you do. Drama, drama, drama. If you have someone in your life who loves conflict and confrontation, run. Run. You don't want any part of that. There is all sorts of conflict that we encounter on a regular basis. It's with people, situations, the weather, circumstances beyond our control. For example, the pandemic. It's how you deal with it that determines how your life goes. So let's start with the most common and sometimes the most devastating. Conflicts with people. I have met a lot of people who say they like to stay away from confrontation. Oh, I'm not confrontational. I don't like it. But then they invite it constantly. People seem to be in denial when it comes to this personality trait of theirs. But there are times when a discussion is necessary to resolve an issue that is facing you with another, like your spouse. There are times they just drive you crazy, right? And you need to work things out with them. How does your spouse handle or like to handle conflict? I was listening to a podcast the other day when a woman was talking about the fact that she likes to discuss controversial and conflict over text message with her husband. It gives her time to think things through, and she isn't as reactive as she is when face to face. Now, she found out after being with him, her husband, for 10 years, that he hates discussing things this way. He would much prefer to talk face to face to get it straightened out as soon as possible. But you don't know these things about each other until you ask. Now, obviously, they have very different ways of communicating during conflict, but until they realized that they both had opposite ways, they just kept rubbing each other the wrong way. So now they can at least move forward knowing what each other prefers. Are you having an issue with a coworker? Oh, been there, done that. This was my biggest problem with my last job as a morning show co-host at a radio station. My partner and I did not get along at all. And it cost us both our jobs. I just couldn't figure out a way to work things out with him. I just couldn't come up with a solution at the time. But I look back now and realize there was a lot more I could have done. We started out great, excited to be co-hosting a morning show together, but from day one, we had different ideas about how to go about doing that show. I tended to be a little more pushy when it came to our ideas. Now, he would agree, but then stew in resentment. He started treating me not so kindly, ignoring me, which was difficult since we had to speak to each other on and off on the air. Now, ignoring me is probably one of my worst pet peeves. It's not even a pet peeve. I mean, it's more than a pet peeve. It's an issue. It's a trigger. I can't stand being ignored. I know this is something that goes back to my childhood. I know that it's something that tells me something about my self-worth. That when somebody ignores me, to me that means they don't think I'm worth a response. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels that way. Nobody likes to be ignored. So I would ask him to talk things out from time to time. We would get some things off our chest. Things would get better for a week or two, but we always ended up right back where we were with treating each other with disdain. It finally came to a head when there were some other issues going on, and instead of the station trying to work things out with the two of us, they felt it would be better to let us both go since we couldn't find a way to get along anyway. I don't blame them, actually. I blame them for certain things, but for just starting over, that would be the smart thing to do since we couldn't get along. We were each going to the boss with complaints constantly about each other. I look back now, though, and I realize I didn't give him much room for his ideas. He often wanted to do and talk about things that I didn't find interesting. But it wasn't always about my interests. It was a man-woman show for a reason because each gender typically finds different things interesting. Now, that's on me. I was so worried about controlling everything that I let stubbornness get in my way. I also could have one point just approached him saying, look, things are awful and I want to fix things because I want to keep this job. I want us to be a success together. Could have laid everything out on the line and figured out how to resolve our hard feelings and work together as a team, as we should have been all along. Now, there's nothing I can do about that now, but you can if you are in a similar situation. I felt like I was in a constant brawl with him. It was a constant competition, and I had to win. I wanted to win. But we both ended up losing. And I ended up losing a job I loved. Aside from working with my partner every day, which, was a big part of it. But don't let pride and stubbornness get the best of you. Don't lose a job because you need to win. That's all ego. It's all ego. Lay your cards on the table. Figure out a resolution. It is possible if you are willing to work on resolving the conflict. We also find ourselves having to deal with things we don't count on. A car accident, an injury, a parent being sick and needing help. These are things that you have to find a way to work around. The best way to do that is to realize where you are after said incident and how you move forward the best you can in your new circumstances. As hard as it is to let go of the resentment these things can cause, it doesn't help the situation in any way, shape, or form. You have time to stew and be bitter and resentful and angry, but you have to let that go as soon as possible. I know, because I've held on to grudges for 30 years or so. Didn't help me at all. It only hurt me. Sometimes the weather can throw a real kink in our plans. Like there's a rainstorm coming on the day you planned your big outdoor party or your wedding. Yeah, it sucks. But life happens, and no one can control the weather. So make a backup plan. This way you are prepared if it gets rained out. Now, when I got married, the ceremony was outside, and we had a contingency plan in case of inclement weather. 2 weekends before, there was a hurricane. You just never know what it's going to happen on that day. I remember we did have a chance of rain on the day of the ceremony, and I talked with the wedding planner at the facility who said, what do you want to do? Do you want to, if it's raining, have it inside? It's not supposed to be a downpour all day. Do you want to maybe push off the time a little bit and go out real quick? It was going to be like a 15-minute ceremony. Go out real quick, come back in. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We are going to go out real quick and come back in. Turned out it didn't rain at all. Didn't rain at all. Wind, however, was completely different. Blew my hair to smithereens. Blew all my girls' hair to smithereens. But that's okay. Hope for the best, but plan for the worst. That way, you are covered. Then there are major things like, I don't know, a global pandemic. Yeah, many people lost their job. Others had to leave their job because someone had to be home with the kids. Businesses were shut down for months. This is when it's time to pivot. Luckily, there were some financial benefits to those who lost their jobs. Now, some got them right away. Some had to struggle until they got it straightened out. Regardless, many people had to find another way to make money. Restaurants survived by offering takeout, and people wanted it since they couldn't go out. Zoom took off like crazy. Had you ever even heard of Zoom until the pandemic? The virtual world was here, and people had to figure out how they would work inside it. The country was shut down for a good 3 months. Many in the service industry had to find other ways to make money. That is part of the reason it's still so hard to find workers. We forced those people to find other ways to make money, and now a lot of them are doing just that and deciding they're done with the service industry. If you've ever worked with the public, you know how difficult it can be at times. I'm sure a lot of people took advantage of new opportunities. Comes down to this: you always have to be ready when change occurs. You have to think ahead and have backup plans just in case something crazy happens. I know that's something that seems like would never be necessary, but the pandemic proved that we just never know. We never know what's going to happen, and more importantly, we don't have near the control we think we do. Now, be thinking about the future and your part in it. How will you adjust? How can you keep going? It's definitely some food for thought. Now, I have all kinds of backup plans for myself, but if my husband came home yet tomorrow without a job, I'm not sure how we would move forward. So I have a little work to do myself. I have to do it myself. Conflict. It's something we all try to stay away from, but it's not always unavoidable. So plan those long talks, make those backup plans, and be ready to pivot on a moment's notice. On a moment's notice. It's the way you protect yourself. Some of you will do this, and you'll be protecting yourself. Some of you won't do it. And when the poop hits the fan, you'll be scrambling. Just give it a little thought. If you like today's episode, please leave me a review. If you didn't like it, please don't leave me a review. Haha. And hit that follow or subscribe button so you can get each new episode as it comes out. And if you think you could benefit from some personal positivity training to improve your life, go ahead and schedule that free call with me to see what working together will do for your life. Design your life, the complete life that you desire. Just visit hopefulist.com/training. Now, I want you to go on out there and be badass this week. I know you can do it. You got it in you, girl. I'm always here cheering you on. Thank you for listening to The Hopefulist. Now, don't you feel good? Make sure you come back next week. See you then.